What up, my freaks? Ruinous Insight here, back with my quick and dirty guide to chaos, this time dealing with escorts and light cruisers. So, first of all, the escorts. Now, generally speaking, chaos escorts are pretty damn fast, but their DPS is definitely on the conservative side, where several factions, most prominently I guess the orcs and the Tau, can actually be extremely effective in spamming escorts in large numbers. For the most part, the same cannot be said of the Chaos faction, as theirs simply do not offer enough DPS to make this viable, at least without insane micro skills and paying attention. In addition to that, with regards to the Chaos campaign, escorts just aren't that important. Escort play is absolutely critical in the multiplayer, but in the campaign, they're effectively just spotters for your ships. So, the Iconoclast, going to start with you. So the Iconoclast is I think I will go through the escorts pretty quickly, as again, they are not all that important to the campaign, but I'm still going to give a decent outline of them, I think, or at least I'll try. So yeah, the Iconoclast, the fastest and most fragile of the Chaos escorts. It bears only 200 shield, 200 hull, which is half of what the other escorts have. That said, it is a blazing fast 280 speed, so it can rush forward and cap things real quick. In addition, that speed allows it to make use of its 6 light missile turrets, which can all fire in that nice 270-degree arc, meaning it can kite, fly around enemy ships, and keep on firing. Now, it is really, really fragile. It also boasts only 50 armor on all its sides, less than all other ships. So, you know, this is one of those ships that's only effective if you're really good at micro, basically, because any kind of escort hunter will just wreck this thing so fast you won't be able to react. That said, I have had some fun flying around bigger enemy ships that are slow, like orc ships, with just a few of these things and pelting away at them with rockets on and on and on and on. It is amusing, but it certainly takes a lot more effort than one would like for such a small ship. Now, I guess we'll go on to the next one, and that would be the Infidel, which is the Torp carrier of the Chaos Escort fleet. Now, it still has 4 of the light missile turrets, so it can still output DPS, and it still can kite in the same way that the Iconoclast can, though it is a little bit less fragile, 400 hull, armor, and such, and a little bit slower, but still quite fast. Now, the thing about the Torps is, these are Chaos Torps. Chaos Torps are the worst Torps in the game, partly because they only have a single type, and they don't have the Melta-Torps, they don't have the Boarding Torps, they just have the regular Torps. And obviously, since this is an escort, it only launches 2, so your best bet is usually to use these things as Scout Torps, i.e. you launch them into the darkness, and you check where the enemy shoots them down. That way you can identify them, and that will still be some use. I suppose that if you get enough of a line of these things, you might still be able to do some damage with the Torps, all fired simultaneously, but it's probably not worth it compared to getting a bigger ship with more armaments, more HP, and more Torps as well. Now we have the Idolater, the first of the 2 light lance artillery escorts. So, as I mentioned, I'm not a huge fan of the light lance artilleries, but, you know. So the Idolater does pretty decent armor-piercing DPS with the light lance artillery. The only issue is it has to be actually firing it. Since it is only front-facing, it is difficult to maintain this on an escort without having to run away, as escorts are very easily threatened and destroyed. So the range is also unfortunately only 9,000 units, so you have to pick between running silent or lock on to keep sniping away with this thing. Yeah, it does fortunately bring some light missile turrets, so that if it has to run after firing its forward-facing artillery, it can still kite and do some damage that way. The difference is The Apostate does not do the same thing. It just doubles up on these light lance artillery, and it makes its own front look kind of a face. We got jaws, we got two lance eyes over here, kind of like a crocodile or something. Yeah. Anyway, so with this thing, you have 0 kiting options. You can only fire front and nothing else. Now, I suppose that if you got a group of these things, or even a small group of idolaters, you can actually put out fairly decent armor-piercing DPS. The problem with the Apostate, specifically, it being one of the newer ships, is that it's a bit of a weird one in only having 200 speed. This is slower than a light cruiser and on par with most cruiser tonnages. Frankly, it is stupidly slow for a Chaos Escort, as most other escorts or small cruisers can catch up and absolutely annihilate this thing. Also, it means it is an escort not really designed as a scout so much as a sort of set-and-forget flanking sniper or sacrificial frontline spotter for a fleet with supporting lances. A fast enemy escort like the Iconoclast could also run circles around this thing without ever being in range of these darn light lance artilleries. So there is definitely an issue there. I suppose that a possible use for them, as I said, could be grouped up, but again, I wouldn't really rely on such strategies in the campaign, because the AI will simply rush you. It could be more effective in the multiplayer, but I guess you would have to play with it yourselves to see if you're willing to put that much investment into the relatively weak escort class of Chaos Fleet. Now, that said about the escorts, I don't know, what's the takeaway about this? I think Chaos Escorts offer pretty good variety of use at lackluster DPS. I personally prefer using the fragile little Iconoclasts for their extra speed, because it does what an escort is supposed to do. I think if you're bringing a bunch of Apostates or Idolaters to snipe people with the light lance artilleries, you might as well just bring yourself a Hellbringer Mark II with its double barrel heavy lance battery weapons with their massively increased range and critical possibility. Due to the fact that these things fire a lot more often than the lance artillery. So yeah, that's just my opinion on the matter. I could be wrong. In addition to that, I think that, I don't know, most of these things can still work fairly well together in a small blob of annoyance, like several of these things at once. But again, you get the kind of results that you expect depending on the amount of micro you put into them. Fortunately, the lackluster elements of the Chaos Escorts are very much made up for by a pair of very, very decent light cruisers in the 2 different marks of Hellbringers, which I will talk about quickly right now. So, the light cruisers, they are fortunately pretty self-explanatory. There's only 2 of them, and they share pretty much all stats except for their main weapons. They both have triple barrel heavy macro turrets that they can use to get away. They're long range in that regard. They're fragile and such. So, Hellbringer Mark I, your first true carrier in the Chaos roster, with its 2 launch bays at a light cruiser level. It has long-range macro turrets, as I already noted. It's fast, it's very fragile, best used to kite around for days while launching ordnance. It is unfortunately the case that the 2 turrets are macro turrets, meaning that despite the long range they have, their accuracy will definitely fall off due to the accuracy malus unless your fleet has the accuracy upgrades. That said, I feel like if this ship had lance turrets instead of macro turrets, it would be way, way overpowered for its cost, so I think it's fine as it is. Now, the Mark II, there we go, is your double barrel heavy lance battery weapon sniper platform. Once again, it is fast and it is fragile, but with a very respectable lance range and damage from a distance, especially considering its cost. it's really, there's nothing else about it. This is the only difference it has from the Mark 1, and I think they're both really just fine ships. You can always use them. They just happen to be made of paper, and they both happen to be, of necessity, have to be kept way in the back. If you have a carrier fleet, grab yourself a Mark 1. If you have need of a cheap, dedicated sniper platform, go for the Mark 2. Just don't expect either of them to survive close quarters. And as easy as that, we will be moving on to the much, much more confusing realm of Chaos Cruisers next episode. Remember to support your friendly neighborhood heretic with a like and a comment, and thanks for watching.